Welcome to the Royal Court Young Playwrights Award. This is the fourth in our series of 6 videos helping you through the process of writing your play. And today, you've got me. Hello, I'm Beth. And in this workshop today, we're going to be looking at how to write your scenes. This is part of the Royal Court Young Playwright series, and this is number 4 of 6. So we're going to be building on the previous videos. So if you haven't already, you might want to go back and look at Sabrina talking about your ideas, Tiffany talking about characters, and Ryan talking about structure. But if you've already watched those, or if actually today you're just ready to start writing your scenes, then welcome. Let's get started. Okay. So when it comes to writing your play, you're probably going to want to divide it up into scenes. Now, scenes can be any length. Some plays are made up of lots of short scenes, and some are actually just one long scene all the way through. Usually, a scene ends when we need to go to a new location, or to show that time has passed, or to take the story into some sort of new place. Scenes can be all kinds of things. They can be gripping or exciting or funny, but usually the ones that work the best, something happens. The characters experience some big change in some kind of way. Okay, so let's start with a warm-up exercise. To get our brains really working, I just want you to think of a scene that sticks in your mind. It might be from a novel, it might be from a play that you studied, or it might be a scene from TV or film. Once you've thought about it, write down a few key things from that scene, like where is it, who is in it, what happens, and what is the change that the characters experience. So for example, I love Act 3, Scene 5 of Romeo and Juliet. So Romeo and Juliet is a play about 2 teenagers that fall desperately in love, although their parents hate each other. So in Act 3, Scene 5, Juliet starts the scene saying goodbye to Romeo, having spent the night together after they've got secretly married. By the end of the scene, her parents are forcing her to marry somebody else altogether. Take a few moments to think about the scene that you have in your head and jot down the answers to the questions on the screen. If you're in a group, you can discuss it as well, because it's interesting to see what sticks in other people's minds. So now that we've thought about what makes a scene work, let's make a start on creating your own. But just before we do that, I'm quite often asked when I'm teaching about how to lay out your script. Basically, the answer is it's sort of up to you. Most people will write the character's name on one side, and then on the same line, they would have the dialogue of what the character's going to say. Here's how I laid it out in my play. And then here's another one, which is An Adventure by Vinay Patel. So there's different ways. If you are entering your play for the Royal Court Young Playwrights Award, we don't really mind, just as long as it's clear and we understand what you're trying to say. Now, by this point in the process, you've hopefully got a story to tell. Don't worry if you don't know every aspect of that story yet. I quite often don't know a lot of mine until my characters actually get on the page and start talking to each other. Start off by deciding which part of the story you're going to tell. Perhaps you haven't done any writing yet, or not that you're happy with, so you're going to start at the beginning. You're introducing your characters and the world of the play. Perhaps you're further on, that's fine. Perhaps your characters are already in the middle of trying to do whatever it is they're going to be doing. Start by making a few notes. I want you to write down, where is it? Who is in your scene? For now, just keep it to 2 or 3 characters. What's just happened? And what is about to happen in this scene that is going to change the characters in some way? Now that you've got a basic plan for your scene, let's deepen your sense of who your characters are. I want you next to write down a few things. First of all, what does your character want? They might have one clear goal for the whole of the play. So in mine, it's Romeo and Juliet want to be together. But they also might have a smaller objective just for this scene. These can be tiny if you want. It could just be, I want a glass of water. In Romeo and Juliet, Juliet wants to persuade her parents that she's not going to marry Paris. Then write down, what is the obstacle? What is stopping your character from achieving that goal? In Romeo and Juliet, it's her mum who is like, hey, you're going to marry Paris, and then her dad. Once you've done this for your main character, you need to do it for all the other characters in the scene. There are no characters in that scene by accident. They all have their goal, and they all have their obstacle to that goal. Lastly, have a think about how your characters speak, because this is really going to affect what you write. Are they chatty? Are they really quiet and they actually don't say much at all? Are they aggressive? Do they swear? Do they give commands? Do they ask questions? Or are they really friendly? Take 5 minutes to think these things through and then write it down or discuss it in your group. You're ready to start writing your first scene. If it doesn't feel perfect, don't worry, this is just a first draft. It's always easiest to get something on the page so you're not staring at that blank bit of paper. Try giving yourself 10 minutes and see what happens. If you don't finish, that's fine, we're going to come back to it later. Okay, how did that go? If you're anything like me, it started out amazingly and you felt like you were writing the best thing ever, and then it sort of fizzled out. Or maybe you did actually rattle all the way through, or maybe you haven't got much. That's all okay. What we're now going to do is have another look at that scene and try adding a few elements. The playwright Mark Ravenhill has this brilliant tip that the ancient Greeks used to use, which can really up the tension for any scene. It's called the messenger. The messenger is a new character that enters maybe halfway through or sometimes a bit later on. They enter the scene and they have news. In Romeo and Juliet, the messenger is Juliet's mother, who comes in and goes, "Hey, great news, Juliet, you're going to marry Paris on Thursday." Another thing your messenger can do is start the clock. This is one of my personal favorites. As soon as you put a time limit on things, the tension ramps up a lot. Juliet's mum doesn't just come in and say, "Hey, you're going to marry Paris, that's great news." She says, "You're going to marry Paris on Thursday." Juliet's got 2 days. You will see this, now that I've pointed this out to you, you're going to see it in almost every film you watch that has a superhero in it. They've got 15 minutes to save the world, go. Now take 10 minutes to try and rewrite your scene, but this time, introduce a messenger. And if it's helpful, they can start that clock. How was that? Hopefully you found it gave a bit of uplift in the excitement of your scene. If it didn't, or you prefer the old one, that's fine. You can just go back to the previous draft. Here's a few other things that your messenger can do. They can introduce distrust. Maybe the messenger says one of the characters is lying. Maybe somebody thinks the messenger is lying. Another thing they can do is inspire action. They give the characters things they have to do. Check his phone, read his letter, go to the castle and rescue the princess. They can also prepare the characters for another character to enter. This is one of my favorite things in Romeo and Juliet. Juliet's mum comes in and says, "Hey, great news, you're going to marry Paris." And Juliet says, "I think you'll find I'm not." And then Juliet's mum goes, "You wait till your father comes and hears about your attitude." Now, Juliet is terrified and we are all actually terrified for her. And finally, they can introduce big news from the outside world. Hamlet hears that people are rioting outside the palace. Macbeth learns about the trees moving towards him. This can be a really fun thing to do, but be careful. You don't want what's going on outside to seem more exciting than on stage. As long as it really powerfully impacts your characters in some way, you should be fine. So take another 5 or 10 minutes and go back over your scene and see if you want to introduce any of those things. How was that? You've done a lot of writing today. So to finish, you're just going to take some time to review over what you've done and decide what you like the best, what you want to keep and what you want to discard. Go through every single line and check that everything your characters say is in a way that you feel is completely true to their characters and who they are. If you have a bit of time left, you can start the next scene. Whatever you do, please keep going. Don't give up. We can't wait to read it. And now, every time you watch a superhero movie, you can spot that moment that they start that clock.